Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Esther, and in this part B I'm going to be talking about how the virus has affected us economically on a global scale and how different countries have responded to the virus. For example, I'm going to be talking about the 3 countries that have been hit the most with the virus and the 3 countries that managed to control the virus. And then I'm going to talk about how the lockdown is affecting people, or like the society. I'm making this series about just to show you guys what is really out there and to inspire you guys to make your own research, because there's more to the story than what they're telling us. So it's up to you, it's up to me to go out there, look for the truth, and then make up our own minds about it instead of just believing everything that we're told on the news. So the economic impact of coronavirus is that businesses are failing, shops are going bankrupt, and some of these big businesses like shops that we know, for example like Primark, they don't have online shopping, which means there is no sales for them in this critical time.
Empty streets have become the new normal during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thousands laid off or furloughed, stores shut down, public gatherings banned, travel restrictions and physical distancing imposed. Many services have been able to go digital in an effort to continue running their business, such as e-learning, online fitness classes, food and grocery delivery services, and telecommunication apps. But there are many industries that can't switch to a digital platform and continue functioning, such as hair salons, spas, events, movie theaters, and the tourism industry.
When the world was first hit with SARS almost 20 years ago, it caused an economic blip, mostly for China and its neighboring countries. But at the time, China's gross domestic product was only 4% of the global total. It now stands at 16%, making China the second largest economy behind the US. One major driver behind China's economic rise was its massive network of factories, which churn out everything from t-shirts to mobile phones for consumers all over the world. Today, China makes up 1/3 of world manufacturing and is the world's largest exporter. Decades of globalization have created supply chains so deeply interconnected that when there are issues in China's economy, it's felt across the globe.
We're going to start in the United States, where 3.8 million Americans have signed on for jobless benefits last week. This now brings the total number of out of work to more than 30 million. And as you can see, this graph shows the number of unemployment claims over the last 6 weeks. It shows just how the country's virus lockdown has hit jobs there. The European Union, the world's largest economic bloc, says its economy shrank at the sharpest pace on record in the first quarter. And this graph shows the GDP of all countries who are using the euro. Between January and March, there was a contraction of 3.8%, even worse than during the financial crisis of 2008. France registered its worst economic slowdown since the Second World War.
Investors fear that the spread of coronavirus will destroy economic growth, and the government action will not be able to stop this decline. So in response, many central banks in all countries, including the United Kingdom, they've slashed interest rates. That in theory means that borrowing is going to be cheaper and they're going to encourage more spending so that it boosts up the economy. So global markets also did recover some ground.
I can announce today an unprecedented package of government-backed and guaranteed loans to support business to get through this.
Tonight, Trump signed the emergency coronavirus aid bill just hours after it was passed by the Senate. It ensures paid emergency leave as well as additional Medicaid funding and unemployment benefits.
The stock market has responded to coronavirus with worrying volatility, and traders are now having panic sold out fear. Okay, so now we're going to look at how I'm going to be focusing on 6 countries. 3 of them have been severely affected by coronavirus, and 3 of them have been able to contain the virus and have been affected less. Different governments put in place measurements to try contain this virus and to mitigate the economy. The 3 countries that have been affected the most is, as of now, which is May, USA, Italy, UK. and the other 3 countries that haven't been affected the most is New Zealand, South Korea, and Taiwan. The reasons as to why these 3 countries, USA, United Kingdom, and Italy, have been affected the most is that when the virus was starting to spread from China to other countries, the leaders, like the local leaders or even like the president, like they did not take this serious, you know. If anything, they were encouraging people, go out, live your lives, like just going out themselves in the community and shaking hands with people, you know, which was kind of stupid to say, because the virus was in China and now they're saying like it's starting to move in different countries, and you're telling people to not be worried, to just continue like as if everything's okay. Come on now.
I'm shaking hands continuously. I was at a hospital the other night where I think there were actually a few coronavirus patients, and I shook hands with everybody. You'll be pleased to know, and I continue to shake hands. And I think it's very important that we, people obviously can make up their own minds. I think that Matt has said that people must make up their own minds, but I think the scientific evidence is, well, I'll hand over to the experts. But our judgment is wash. Washing your hands is the crucial thing.
Leaders in New York not only failed to shield their citizens from it, they took affirmative and aggressive steps to increase the risk to their population. Why would they do that? Well, because they were worried far more about being called racist than protecting human lives. That's not an overstatement. That's not hyperbole. Watch the city's health commissioner, Osiris Barbett, urge New Yorkers to spend as much time as possible in crowded public places. Keep in mind, this video was from February 2nd of this year. That was long after the threat from the Chinese coronavirus was obvious to anyone who was paying attention.
The risk to New Yorkers for coronavirus is low, and that our preparedness as a city is very high. There is no reason not to take the subway, not to take the bus, not to go out to your favorite restaurant, and certainly not to miss the parade next Sunday. I'm gonna be there.
But there's really no need to panic and to avoid activities that we always do as New Yorkers. We are a hardy people.
Many in the media have been covering this issue as if it's, a terrible plague that people have to avoid.
Anyway, so these leaders, they just encourage people to go out, instead of taking the measures necessary to contain this virus. And for example, I'll say UK, right? The first time that the lockdown happened, they just said, oh, stay at home, just don't go outside, and that was it. It was after people complained. Don't get me wrong, I think the reason why they said that is because most businesses in the UK are private owned. So if it was government owned, that would have been a different thing. Anyway, back to the issue. So it was after that, a week later, that's when the Prime Minister decided to take action and say, okay, do you know what? Stay at home, lock down all businesses. And that's when things started to be serious. However, if they had done the same thing in the beginning, maybe we would be in a better place, literally, because right now it's not getting any better, it's just getting worse, my friend. I'm telling you, people are dying left, right and center all over UK. But people are recovering as well. Do not forget that. They always forget to say that on the news, but people are recovering, and we should focus on the positive as well, because just focusing on the negative, that's going to cause stress, that's going to cause anxiety, and that is not what you need, because guess what? That lowers your immune system. We're trying to boost that thing up, all the way up. So yes, after finally taking control in the countries that are affected the most, that took time, by the way. They just dragged and just let it affect people. Anyway, so after taking time, the measurements that the government has put in place were quarantine, social distancing, washing your feet, washing your hands with soap and warm water, and carrying sanitizer with you, and wearing a face mask, gloves, especially wearing PPE for people who deal with like vulnerable people or people who are working in hospitals. But even then, the PPE, it was sold out. Like, it was literally out of stock. It's like as if they did not learn from the previous epidemics that happened around the world. Anyway, it is what it is. So that happened, a lot of people have died, and it's just not good. However, the countries that were able to contain the virus, okay, so what can we learn from them? Like, what can other countries learn from these people? Like, what they done differently compared to the countries that have been affected the most? Yeah, bear in mind, the countries that I'm focusing on in this episode are MEDC countries, which is more economically developed countries. So there's no excuse.
Every week, tens of thousands of people travel between Taiwan and mainland China, yet there are fewer than 80 cases of COVID-19 in Taiwan. The health minister says the Taiwan CDC has been preparing for this for years. Both Canada and Taiwan saw their first people infected with the coronavirus within days of each other, but in March, Canada's cases surged, while Taiwan creeps up only incrementally, even when adjusted for its smaller population. Passengers now fill out health questionnaires on their phones while at the gate.
They could triage large number of passengers very quickly without having them lining up in the airport.
Taiwan also tied together electronic patient files to immigration records, following up with those at risk based on their travel history, texting them to self-isolate if needed, and checking up in person, threatening fines if orders are ignored. Banning mask exports and price gouging, the military even took over mask production. Taiwanese in self-isolation are delivered food and other supplies, as well as home visits to check on their welfare. It's the combination of small gestures and big data that's given Taiwan an unprecedented edge over other countries in controlling COVID-19.
South Korea caught corona just as Italy went down with it. Both suffered explosive outbreaks.
The government was able to make a very fast move to identify and isolate patients.
Early mass testing, he says, the secret weapon.
South Korea was able to provide this wide spread testing. In the earlier phase of the outbreak, testing is much more important. But later, maybe you just have to go into the mitigation measure.
South Korea had test kits in stock. When the virus hit, the response was immediate. Watch how COVID-19 spread in South Korea and Italy. By early March, South Korea had far more infections. Then look what happened. Today, Italy has 8 times as many infections. Deaths there stand at 7,500. South Korea's at 126. South Korea did not go into total lockdown. Its manufacturers went into overdrive, producing test kits straight away. Per capita testing is the highest in the world and mortality the lowest. Why? Because early detection minimizes spread and asymptomatic cases are caught. There's drive-through testing and booth testing, 600 centers nationwide, keeping people out of hospitals. Tests take minutes, results by SMS in hours. Diagnostic capability on this scale is South Korea's silver bullet, enabling forensic digital contact tracing. But aggressive tracing's intrusive. Laws enacted after the last respiratory epidemic, MERS, 6 years ago, enable the government to track an infected individual's digital footprints, mapping networks of transmission and closing them down.
In Asia, there is just more acceptance of intrusive measures which in the liberal West might be deemed too stringent to stomach.
After SARS, then MERS, South Korea had a plan in place, as did Taiwan, Singapore and Hong Kong, which have also kept infection and fatality rates low. Unlike China's authoritarian response, these Asian democracies were transparent, and their citizens readily adopted corona courtesies and took limitations on liberty in a wartime-like spirit of national resolve.
That's the good way to actually go about things, because the thing is, it's better to be safe than sorry, because all of this could have been avoided if the right measures were put in place at the very beginning, regardless of what the public thought. Because now that they were not put in place in the beginning, the public is complaining that the government is not doing what they were supposed to do, which is like enforcing these strict measures, you know. Okay guys, so as I come to an end, I've just got like a question that, you know, summarizes up everything that I've been talking about. How's this virus prompted the response of the individual MEDC governments to act accordingly to stop the spread of the virus, and how's their decisions and actions affected society? So I would say that the government, obviously, like as we've seen, some of them responded quickly, some of them responded slowly to the virus, and obviously that decision has cost them each separately. So the countries that did not think this virus was that serious, obviously we can see that most of them are having more cases, more deaths, and they're having to extend their lockdown measures, yeah. And the countries that have been able to contain the virus, we can see that they've lifted their lockdowns like after just a month or so, and people are starting to go back to work. So that's a good thing, you know. And I feel like these decisions that the governments have put in place, in a way they've been helpful, like they've been good in terms of like the society, because you know we have to follow it to avoid the spread of the virus. And they've been good in terms of like Mother Nature, because obviously as we've seen, Mother Nature has restored itself in most of the parts of the world, yeah. But obviously it's not good in terms of like the economy, you know. It's not good in terms of like people have lost their jobs. So in a way it's affected us 50-50, you know, the good and the bad. So I just want to say thank you guys for watching, and I hope you've learned a thing or two in this episode. And you know, don't forget to subscribe, like, and do share as well, like comment as well. I want to hear your thoughts, guys. You know, the main reason I'm making this series is just to show you guys what's out there and to inspire you to take initiative and like just do your own research, find out things for yourself, because you shouldn't believe what we just told in the news, because there's too much to the story. There's more to the story than what we're actually being told. So I hope this series, there's going to be 3 parts, so I hope they inspire you into doing what's right, you know, and just educating yourself as to what is actually out there. So catch you guys later, and Be safe. God bless you.